guys sign on usually? Look at this presentation.
Yeah, that's fine.
Do I get that on that? Okay, great. Steve, we are recording and streaming.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and get the meeting going. This is the City of Meridian Solid Waste Advisory Commission regular meeting for February 28th, Wednesday of 2018. It is now 5 minutes after 4, and we'll start with roll call. Indicate if you are present. Cheryl Caldwell. Mark Nelson.
Here.
Steve Corey, here. Carrie Glenn, absent. Dave Neal.
Here.
Megan Larson.
Present.
Andrea Pogue.
Here.
Scott Walters.
Here.
And Victoria Madrigal.
Here.
Ex officio members, Councilwoman Genesis Malam.
Here.
And Rochelle Klein. Quorum being present, we will go ahead and move on with business. First item on the agenda is approval of the agenda. Are there any comments on the agenda?
Mr. Chair, I would move to approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that the agenda be approved as written. Further comments? Sensing the commission is ready for a vote, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. The motion passes. Thank you. We then move on to approval of minutes. First, the minutes from the January 24th regular meeting. I see that there's a blank in who did the seconding of approval of the agenda. Anyone want to take responsibility for that?
Mr. Chair, I can take responsibility for that.
Yeah, I think Victoria did that. So
I can't quite
for
remember,
that
to be honest.
blank, if we have Commissioner Madrigal. Further comments or motions on the minutes?
Mr. Chair, I move to approve the minutes as corrected. Or, yes, that's worded right. Okay.
Second? You second.
It's been moved and seconded that the minutes from the draft minutes from the January 24th meeting be approved as amended. Are there further comments? Sensing the commission is ready for a vote, all those in favor of approving the minutes as amended signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed, nay. The motion passes. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from the February 1st special meeting. Are there any comments?
Mr. Chair, I move to approve the minutes from the February 1st special meeting.
Thank you.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that the minutes from the February 1st special meeting be approved as written. Further comments? Sensing the commission is ready for a vote, all those in favor of approving the minutes from the February 1st meeting as written signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? The motion passes. Thank you. And that brings us up to a presentation by Mike Mergodio. If you'd come on forward at this time, And for the record, if you'd state your name and your address, or identify yourself.
Yeah, my name is Mike McCurry, members of council, Mr. Chairman. I'm here to give a presentation today on curbside organics recycling. And start off by doing my presentation. At the end, I'll follow up with any questions you guys may have. A little about my background. My family's been farming here since the turn of the century. My great-grandfather here jumped ship here right at the turn of the century and started a farm at 40 acres off Maple Grove Road. And something we've been doing for a long time. You know, my grandpa took over after that, and then my dad grew it, and I'm currently farming 800 acres myself. The rest of my family's put us all together. We're about 2,000 acres now. And we depend a lot upon commercial fertilizers right now, your NP and Ks, your nitrogen, phosphorus, and potash. And the crops we raise right now for my 1,200 head of cattle are like your corn silages, hay. It's all raised to that 800 acres. One of the things that my grandpa really started in is using byproducts. They've really helped us to where we can farm at a more economical rate, you know. And one of those byproducts is flour tortillas from a local tortilla factory around here. And, you know, it's kind of funny, the cattle love them. They absolutely love them. They think that's the hot ticket. They'll nose through and eat those first. A lot of the other things we'll do is from the sweet corn plant here, we'll use the shucks. Same thing. They really like it. So byproducts are a big part of our deal. And like I said, it stemmed from really my grandpa's idea, going back to the sugar factory. And we had that for 25 years, that contract, hauling beet tailings out of there until the sugar content, they got the process down so well to where there really wasn't a lot of material left and just kind of became more of a product that we really didn't want to use. But we hauled out of there for 25 years. So I myself personally have been trucking or managing trucking for 17 years. Part of that was part of my dad's contracts. And now I own 12 myself. And we haul anything from, you know, mulch to trash, you know, garbage. And we haul about 1 million pounds a day. So those trucks haul a lot of material around the valley. One of the unique things about our deal we made with Republic Services is we haul trash up, the 4 loads a day per truck, and then we backhaul our material of mulches from our recycling facility. And it's pretty cool. So we've had the Ada County landfill for probably since 2013. Really, my dad started this 25 years ago. He had the idea of the cattle bedding with the mulch, and you know other people were doing it, and he decided to incorporate it into our farm. And that mulch was another one of those things, like my grandpa had the idea of, is you know kind of intertwining that you know recyclable with our farm, and it really lowered our cost for our tag, which is the buildup of mud and stuff on the cow's fur during the winter, and it really makes a big difference. So each one of us has been trying to do different things to implement more of these opportunities into our farm to make them cheaper. So now we're clear up to, we recycle about 100 million pounds a year through our feedlot and our farming operations. So it's pretty cool. And that kind of leads me into, you know, the waste stream that we're targeting. Right now in your household, your single-family household waste, this has come from Ada County's survey they did in 2014. You can see your yard debris and food waste are your top two, and they're both compostable. So you got your 24% and your 17%. Judge and buy off of what Boise City has done on their numbers. It's about 82 pounds per can, and if you average it out for 34,000 households, that equals about 33 million pounds of material a year, which is a lot, you know, and that's the equivalent of like 2,400 school buses by the tonnage annually. So it's a lot of weight. The materials we want to collect with this recycling program we're presenting to you are, you know, grass, leaves, food waste, garden waste, branches and trees. Very similar to what Boise City is doing. That we're going to collect them in a can, 95-gallon can. One of the things that Republic Services had trouble with this last winter is they had a big leaf collection year. The fall was just right. A lot of leaves fell at the same time, and they just were, had so many bags that were just laid out and took their guys out to late hours of night. So we want to try and help them manage that a little bit. So I would, like to add that in our literature to our citizens, that you limit it to 10 bags per week, as a part of the collection deal, just to kind of give them some help. The future prospects we're looking at doing is biosolids to kind of help out the city with that program. The other thing is the compostable paper. One of the other things in the last slide, there was paper, and only about 3.5% of that is compostable. So, I really don't want to add that right in off the bat, because we're afraid of the contamination that may come in the confusion of what's a compostable paper and what's not. So the commercial grass pilot program that I'm wanting to do towards when we work in, a lot of your commercial grasses, you have procure lids or persistent herbicides. And what those are is they tend to not break down the composting process. And when they get into the compost, you go to sell them to like your Lowe's and Home Depot, it gets in there and it kills tomato plants and different sorts of broadleafs. So we really want to limit our exposure when we go to market these materials, and that's one of our exposures. There are some processes out there that are claiming to be right and one thing or another. That's why I think it needs to be incorporated into a pilot program, not into our right off the bat program here, just to kind of limit our risk. So some of the benefits to what we're doing is for us as a farm, it reduces our need for chemical fertilizer. We're diverting 33 million pounds away from the landfill every year. Off the EPA website, this reduces your methane emissions from the landfills and lowers our overall carbon footprint. One of the things for the city purposes, they did a survey in 2017 about what city services and their approval ratings for the citizens. And out of the 14 things the city provides for their citizens, only 2 of them declined last year. And that was a recycling service and the building services. You can obviously see the 4% was the highest, and I think this program will help knock that down. So in our recycling process, there's really 3 different parts. There's your collection, your processing, and marketing. Each one of them have their own risk. The collection side, we have a very good location here for the Meridian citizens for the next 10 to 15 years. It's 4 miles south, 1 mile east of Meridian Road, and just 4 miles south of the freeway, 1 mile east of Meridian Road. It's 160 acres. I'm planning on, in my proposal to DEQ and our site preparation, we're planning on putting not only 20-acre site in, we're planning on having the extension of it, to where it's another 60 acres or more. The site is big. It can handle more than what Meridian will do. It can handle several of the cities if needed be. And would also be a great backup for Boise cities. If they have something go wrong, right now the only place they can take it is Clay Peak and the landfill. So, and there's a couple other options, but really I feel like it would be a good fit for Boise. One of the things we'd have to do is rezone it or have a development agreement. Engineering, it could do a couple site improvements. One of the things that your trash service would have to do is provide 34,000 cans, and there'd be 95 gallon cans. 7 CNG trucks, they'd be running year round. Part of this proposal I'm putting together, I'm kind of gearing towards wanting to have a full subscription, not a option in. We want to do weekly collection, an option online opt-out, similar to what Boise did. I think that's a good way to say you don't have to do it, but we still want everybody to kind of be a part of this to lower the cost for everybody. So another part of the recycling process is obviously processing the material. This is obviously both the trucking end and the processing end have both been proven things. Processing, there's many classes out there to do it. It's fairly easy, especially if you have experience, know what you're doing. We've been doing this for a long time. We have the resources. We have 2 grinders. We have one that's 6,000 horizontal. Very nice machine. It grinds this stuff up incredibly fast. It's a force feed. We have a tub grinder. We have 2 excavators, obviously 5 loaders, 1 screening plant, water truck, scales. We have a lot more equipment than this, but the only thing we need a part of this is these things and 1 windrow turner. In 2015, we were the DEQ pollution prevention champion, which I think that was really cool. And what they did is they took, applications all over, and they chose us because of our way we incorporate the recycling process into ag and have that sustainable niche there. And we really feel like that composting program really fits in nicely with this. So as you can kind of see, here's your capacity analysis and your risk analysis of this as well. We currently supply the two biggest box stores, the two biggest wholesalers that provide for box stores. So like your Lowe's, Home Depot, they bag the stuff and have contracts with them. There's really two big ones in the state of Idaho. Now, the one is too far away, compost is too heavy, wouldn't really make sense to ship it out to them. But the one is close enough, obviously, to do it. We currently supply over half their material currently, but as you can see, the capacity of what they can take isn't really there. The wholesalers and nurseries, this is another cyclical market. It kind of goes up and down with your cycles of the economy. The second the economy turns, these guys aren't out buying compost for their flower beds anymore. So these are kind of dangerous zones for your in use, I feel. They're a great way to make some money for your profit margins, to lower your cost to your compost down, but to take it over the test of time, you got to be pretty creative and have a pretty good marketing plan on your hands to just target these. Not saying it's not possible, but it's very difficult. Your municipalities, again, they are very safe, but this is like your parks, your schools, they would take it, but yet again, they're going to have to buy equipment to incorporate it into their grass, and that costs money, and you're going to have another sales team really gearing up to go for it, right? Farms, for us, it's a locked-in deal. There's nitrogen contents in there very high, and it's slow release, right? You have your instant, ammonias that come in and plug it right in that year or right instantly, and then you have your slow release over time that adds to it also. Plus, what we're going to provide here, the 33 million pounds, to me, it doesn't even cover a big portion of my farm. So I know, push comes to shove, we incorporate it all into our farm ground, and there's very little risk there. So we're pretty excited that we can add to that, like I said, that family look at what we're doing. So our timeline, now this is kind of a moving target. Obviously, you have DEQ, the city. You're all trying to come up with ideas of how you're going to implement all these plans. So obviously today we're here. We're trying to get this on Murray City Council as soon as we can, because the time for Republic to push in their trucks is anywhere from 10 to 12 months, or whoever you guys use for your trash collection service. So I want to try and push it to where we can meet this deadline of next year of the 3/1/19 is what we're kind of shooting for. We need, DEQ, they're another player in this, so we're trying to get them to where we have the least amount of hiccups for them, to where they come back to our engineers and say, no, we got to change X, Y, and Z. So we want to give us some buffer time there, but that also allows Republic to get their trucks here in time. So we're not wanting to start this right away. We're wanting to start this for next year. So in summary, I feel like we're qualified. I feel like we have the equipment. We have a great location. We have a sustainable, low-risk, proven system. We're converting waste into fertilizer for us. The process, we have a great team. My guys have been doing this for a long time, and I feel like I can put this to great use for our farm. Next steps is really to talk about the contract terms, what you guys want to do. We kind of have a range of where we know we can kind of put the price point to this, but it really depends on what you guys ask of us. If we kind of like to donate a portion of this compost back to the citizens, whether it's a quarter to a third, if you guys would like more, is it a full subscription to where everybody's involved, or is it a portion? That all varies the price. Right now, I think, one of the best case scenarios, which I think is an easy target, is, $24.50 a ton. But if you guys are asking one thing or another, it could go up to 28 or 30. But I don't really see those numbers unless you guys start asking for, really specialized things. Yet again, Republic's new trucks, they have one grass cart, so they'd have to order 6 new trucks and 34 new carts. If you guys go with Republic, but I assume they are. They work great with us. But this is my presentation. I'm open up to any questions for you guys. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike, for that's really appreciate you being able to present a thorough discussion about the subject. Members of the commission, do you have any comments or questions for Mike? Dave.
Mr. Chairman, Mike, first of all, I'd like to commend you for your work that you do at the landfill. I've seen that. It's one of the most cost-effective recycling processes in the valley, probably is the most cost-effective. Best case scenario, what would the cost be per household?
Mr. Chairman, Dave. Cost be per household, so you're talking the dollar amount per month? I don't have that answer. I would have to convert that. I would just want to keep it that on Republic side for their trash collection side, and I would just be by the ton rate. So to answer your question, to try and gear that back to it, we could try and organize that. I am reluctant to do that because if I'm forced to put down to a dollar amount per household and guess the amount of tonnage that's going to be coming in, it's going to be guessing on the high side. And I feel like, with Boise City, they, went off the stats of, the same thing I went off of, and it was an underestimation of what came in. And so I feel like the safe bet would be the go by the tonnage for that and do a collection dollar per amount through them. But if that's what you're asking me, I would do that by the dollar amount.
Thank you.
You bet.
Andrea.
Mr. Chair, with regard to the rezoning or the development agreement work that has to be done, what's your estimated time frame for going through the city's process?
Mr. Chairman, I think it would be fairly quickly. We're already in the process with talking with Caleb Hood right now. We're amending a current development agreement that we had before. It would be a minor modification, but I'm thinking it would still probably be in that 4 weeks to 2 months to be safe. But that would still get us plenty of time to get it into the program, next spring.
Mr. Chair.
And Councilwoman.
Mike, great presentation. I just been playing with some numbers based on some of the things that Mike threw out there, and talking to Rochelle. Cost-wise, Dave, probably $4.50 to $5 per month per house, right?
Well, Mr. Chairman, Genesis ran the numbers Mike gave her and said, "Oh, it's $1 a household." I'm like, it's not going to be $1. Like that's on the processing. So when she went with $1, I'm like, what a bargain. Let's do it today. But it's not $1. I mean, the dollar might be an estimate for the processing, but then it's the cart rental, which in Meridian is probably Carrie's not here, maybe $2 a month for the cart, and then the service on top of that, and then there's some savings in the avoided disposal costs. So we'd have to, based on the estimates, we'd have to go back, and it's going to be like all in. I mean, Dave can probably speak to this more. It's going to be over $5 minus what your savings are. So it's hard to say without actually next steps for us to move that direction to get actually costs for you would be a letter from the City of Meridian saying we'd like to see what it would cost based on Mike's presentation. We'd like to see what that would cost at the curb per household on and all like everybody opting in, like everybody in. And so then we could actually sit down and perform that and then come back with what that an estimate would be. I know that Genesis wants it right now, and I wish we had it, but we rough. But the next step for us to finish Mike's piece of it would be a letter just requesting the data, and then that would authorize us to start our performa on it and get numbers. Did you have anything, Dave, to add to that?
So, Mr. Chair, I have a question.
Andrea.
Rochelle, Mike referenced where public services would need X new trucks and 34,000 carts. How soon would you need city's approval in order to make that, get that equipment on board and containers ordered and delivered to you guys in order to be distributed if we're shooting for a start date next year?
Mr. Chairman and Commissioner Pogue, it takes I don't know what the funnel for trucks is now, but it's usually 10 months to 12, isn't it around 10 months probably for trucks? Carts, we can get a little bit sooner, but that's a large order of carts. So I would say probably 6 months for carts. Are you thinking a year? Yeah, so it would probably be, if we could get a letter from the City of Meridian soon just requesting more data. It's not a commitment that you want to do this, but just for us to go and pencil out what our truck costs would be, what our cart costs would be, labor costs, things like that. And then we'd look at the fuel, consume, and all the pieces that go into a pro forma. And then we could come back to you with what a number would be, but figure 10 to 12 months for carts and trucks for lead time. Maybe a little shorter on the carts, but definitely on the trucks they take a while to make.
There wouldn't, Mr. Chair, be any way that you could use the trucks in Boise? Are they, that are doing the composting?
Sure. So, Mr. Chairman, Andrea, so the trick with that is they're all maxed out during the peak season. So we see peak season, like all growing season long, those trucks are running. Like that's the efficiency of good pricing, is that we try to keep each one running a full route. And so they're unless we ran routes like at night in Meridian, or, if we offset it, but there are definitely pulses. Like right now, we'd have a lot of capacity, but there's nothing growing. And same thing, like after leaf season, it gets really quiet. We wouldn't have enough capacity, like 6 full routes of capacity in our existing fleet. Did you want to add anything to that? Yes, we'd have to definitely buy trucks for this, so to launch it. And it would like the March 1st start date would be a soft start date because it takes a long time. So you roll out the carts one week and you start service the next. So with that many carts, it might take a month. How long do you think? I'm looking at Dave. I'm guessing it'd take a month. So like the first houses would start March 1st, and then they would like the last houses would get their carts, probably April 1st. And those trucks would follow as the carts hit the streets. So for example, Boise launched recycling last April. I think I was, or maybe it was June that we actually launched. I was the last day of the very last route on the last day. So I was 6 weeks into it before I even got a cart to participate. So it'd be nice if everyone started at the same time, but it's definitely a soft rollout.
Okay.
That gives you an idea too.
I have a question on where the 34,000 carts comes from. I'm assuming not every home is a candidate for its use, multi-use homes or small lots or neighborhoods that pay to have all their yard work done. I don't know where all this.
So, Mr. Chairman and Mark, right. So what we found worked best is every household with residential service was given a composting cart, and the Meridian is in good shape because we have small, medium, and large. So even if you are a small generator, like let's say you have a townhome, or you have your yard work done for you, you can always get a small cart. So we found that the people who opted out, we made it really clear, if you're opting out, you're out and you're not participating. And so when leaf season came and they were inundated with leaves, or when their Christmas tree needed to be hauled away, or when they wanted to trim some of their shrubs, woody debris does not break down easily at home in a home composting unit. And a lot of people have their grass mowed, but they don't have all of their, trees and shrubs and everything done on a regular basis. So it was a big commitment when we actually walked through the steps of saying opting out means you don't get to put your Christmas tree out. You don't put your leaves out. You throw those in the trash cart. Like that's the deal. And so we found that I want to say 95% of the people in Boise chose to have a cart, and they actually use it. And even produce scrap, for people with the smallest cart, all the produce clippings, you can get a little bucket in your house, and then you just dump them in a paper bag and roll it closed and put it in your compost cart for weekly service. And so I just pulled stats the other day for the city of Boise. During the peak season, during leaf season, we were seeing 90% of the households set up their carts. And then in the summer, it was about 65%. Right now, it's around 20%. But we were impressed with, there was a size to fit just about everybody. Even people who said, I have a yard service, and one of the things we encouraged them to do was say, well, just have your yard service clip your grass and put it in your cart. that's what a lot of them have chosen to do, because they, like to Mike's point, the persistent herbicides, the clopyralid, and everything in that family that we want to avoid, we see those on the commercial side, but we don't see those on the residential side. Even when you have a commercial company cutting your grass and treating your grass with fertilizer, in order to get an applicator's license through the Department of Agriculture, they have to take a test that says, I know I will never use persistent herbicides in a residential application. And so what he's talking about really safeguards the end product, which we're not seeing any of that in our product right now in Boise, which is really fantastic. So and the other thing is too, I know this is probably a long answer, in Boise, you get compost back if you participate in the program. And if you choose not to participate in the program, then you're not one of the people that gets to go get compost for your garden or flower bed or whatever in the end. So there's some incentives to actually participate.
But that isn't necessarily what's going to be offered through your program?
Mr. Chairman. Yes, it will be offered. So it really depends on, like, when in the numbers I told, best case scenario, that's like a quarter to a third of what I produce will go back to the citizens of Meridian for free. And we'll have a little place out at our yard for them to come pick it up for free because we're close. And one of the other things we talked about is the garden you guys have here in Meridian. I was also going to offer to those guys too. So there would be a free program for them as well. And I think a third is going to be more than enough for what the citizens will use for their households.
I have another question.
Andrew?
I know in following Boise's compost program, and that they were contemplating opening their program to other municipalities as they finished their first year and saw how it went, worked out the bugs, and you know that the thought was other cities could come online and take advantage of their program. We hadn't gotten that far, so this seems as though this is an alternative option. I'm just wondering if you, either one of you, Rochelle or Mike, have talked to Boise about this, or if you know how it might impact them one way or another, if Meridian would go this route that Mike's suggesting.
So, Mr. Chairman and Commissioner Pogue, the answer is that's absolutely their intent. Their intention is to open it up. However, that being said, I think we're almost double, weren't we? What our anticipated inbound volume, wasn't it close? I think we were looking at 33 tons a day and we got 65. Wasn't that close? It was a lot. So we're in the process of looking to expand the current site to accommodate the material that Boise's generating. I think once we get into a good cadence that there's going to be capacity, but right now we're still working through, the material comes in pulses, like you get a lot of nitrogen-rich material in the summer with the grass and then carbon-rich material in the fall. And you know, we have to grind all that in pretty short order, and then there's like nothing for a while. So the idea of capacity for another city the size of Meridian, it would be probably more than a year out, wouldn't you say, Dave?
And yeah, it just depends on what city Boise wants to do.
How quickly, yeah. But we are looking at expanding the site already because we're impressed with the participation so far, which I would think Meridian residents would participate probably at the same level.
So I guess for me, one of the things I would ask for in a letter to Republic Services and asking for you guys to do the pro forma would be maybe to compare their program and our coming on board their program, what would be required, because obviously that's going to be a further distance, whatever. Sure. But so it might cost our residents more if we went that route, or slower, you know. But on the other hand, I think to be fair, we'd want to vet both options, would just be my opinion, to hear back from you as to, I mean, if they're the same cost or is one going to be more or less. Do you
we
think
can certainly
you'd be able to do that? Yep,
if you ask for like both, we would be happy to.
Okay.
It's just another performa. No, I'm kidding. I'm just kidding. No, but we would be happy to provide both sets of data.
Dave.
Sorry. Mike or possibly Rochelle, am I wrong, or are there actually two different possibilities here? I think the city of Boise is responsible for getting rid of the compost that's generated. What you're talking about, it would be your responsibility.
Correct.
So it wouldn't be the city of Meridian on the hook for marketing, et cetera, the compost. The city of Boise is.
Mr. Chairman, yes. Right now, Boise, from what I understand, is responsible for getting rid of the end-use product, and for this program, we would assume all risk for that.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Megan.
And I'll start by saying, I'm sorry if I have simple questions, but I'm not very familiar with your existing program. So the material that you currently process, is that, what's your source for that material?
Mr. Chairman? So that's from the Ada County landfill. So our recycling operations, we handle all the wood waste that goes up there. And up until Boise started their program, we were responsible since 2013 for every leaf that dropped in Ada County. So we took all that beforehand. Okay. And then, so we also take Republic Services wood waste that they collect throughout the Ada County as well.
So that's when you take your trucks up and then you're coming back down, that's what you're bringing with you? Okay. Yeah. And then?
Yes, continue.
Additional question, just kind of at a high level on the money element of it. So when you talk about when you talk about $24.50 a ton, how is that based on the tons that you're processing? Is that what that applies to, or?
So that would be based upon the volume that I would expect doing this program. Oh, excuse me, Mr. Chairman. That would be so if I, at that point, bringing in that big a volume, I could get all my costs down to where it's cheaper for me to do it. Because right now, if I just do my own stuff and then accept a few others, that price would have to be just a couple, $2, maybe $1 or $2 higher than that. But the more volume you have, the more, heavier duty machinery you can buy, the less people, the more you keep people busy, and you don't have to, try and pull a guy here and do that. So it would bring that down with the volume increase.
So you're estimating that's what you would assess the city, and then the city in turn would recover from the citizens. Is that right?
Run that by me one more time.
Sure, that, I don't know. Go ahead, say it again.
The $24.50 a ton would be what the city would pay for your services of processing the material.
Mr. Chairman, yes.
Okay, and then the city would collect from the residents to offset that cost.
Right. So I think, Mr. Chairman, and to answer your question, I think what you're wondering is, so if the council decided to support this, if SWAC made a recommendation to the council to support this, and let's say the fee was, with Mike's processing and our hauling, it's $5.25 a month or $4.10 a month or whatever that turns out to be, that would just be added to the resident's bill, and then we would get paid, and just like we remit the Ada County landfill bill, we would pay Mike. He has a scale at his facility on all inbound tons, so he'd say, you brought X number of tons in, and so this is what, so we would pay Mike, just like we pay Western Recycling or the landfill, we would pay Mike, but it would just be one fee, so the residents wouldn't see two separate fees, it'd just be,
right.
We would remit.
Yeah, I'm just trying to understand the basics of how
Yeah.
the
Okay,
flows.
so that makes more sense to me too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. And I have one more question.
Yes,
So,
Andrea.
Mike, you mentioned truck ownership and you're hauling here and there in the valley, but you're not going to compete with Republic Services for hauling with,
Mr. Chairman.
in this program.
No, ma'am, I'm not. We're really gonna kind of gear towards what our commodities, are, so our trucks can go on mulch to, the sweet corn shucks and then trash. So we're trying to keep them in that same thing where they're multiple use. I mean, I don't know what I'm gonna do with a trash truck on a farm. I don't know what I would do, so wouldn't use that.
Because we have our exclusive franchise with
Yeah.
Republic Services.
Yeah.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Mike, I noticed in the list of what you would collect to compost is food waste. And I assume that you mean organic food waste, not meat, not dairy.
Correct. That's Mr. Chairman. That is correct. It's really, I want to gear this to exactly what Boise City is doing. So if one hiccup happens with either site, we can redirect and go to there, or vice versa. Because if any one thing happens right now, I feel like there's a risk to the one facility right now.
Andrea?
Mr. Chair, Rochelle, do you know what the compost household monthly rate is in Boise?
What the residents actually pay. The final cost was $3.40 per household per month, but that was, the actual cost of service is higher than that. So that's with, some funding from the enterprise fund and an offset from disposal costs, and but the actual cost to the resident was $3.40. But that's not the true cost of service, I guess.
And then my understanding is if someone opted out, they pay more. Is that?
So, Mr. Chairman, Andrew, they don't actually, if they actually opt out, they're not paying more to opt out. They would pay the same rate as actually using the program. There's not a discount for opting out. There was not an incentive to have a whole bunch of people opt out. The program is for everybody, and if they chose not to have a carton to participate, that was okay. But there was not a discount and there was no penalty either. So, and the reason for that is there are some true organic composters in Boise, and they didn't want to. They are doing their own thing, and they're doing it well, and they have a process in place, and like chicken manure, they had all these people's stories that came out, which were great. But so they had something already going. They wanted to make sure they respected that, but they did see a lot of those folks actually wind up opting back in when it came to the woody waste, because they wanted to take advantage of the stuff that's hard to break down. Sure.
Dave?
Mr. Chairman, and I apologize for taking up so much time. I think in reference to Andrea's question, the Republic is getting paid, I think, $5.50 a month in Boise. So it's a couple of dollars a month is coming from the City of Boise's Billing Services Enterprise Fund. They've built up quite a fund over the years. The franchise fee or whatever they keep from Republic Services isn't spent, doesn't go to general fund, goes to an enterprise fund, so that fund is quite large. So most of the $2 per month above and beyond the $3.50 or whatever it is that the public is paying, that the public is paying or the residents are paying is coming out of that. Eventually that fund, I presume, will run out, the enterprise fund, and all of a sudden the residents will be paying a lot more than $3.50. Something's got to happen someday.
Commissioners, additional questions or comments? We could go with a motion, but I don't know. It sounds like the next action is a letter to Republic Services. Would it be possible for the city to?
Yeah, how about, your timeline indicated present here today. If we could have a motion from the commission directing legal to prepare a letter for Republic Services, then we could carry it forward. I could report back. How long do you think, Rochelle, it would take you to work up a pro forma? Do it by the next SWAC meeting?
Do it within 30 days. If we get a letter from them, can we do it within 3 weeks?
At least 30 days, because it's a major project.
Yeah.
So maybe.
So Mike, welcome to the world of bureaucracy. Might not be able to move as quickly as you would like, but I think we could start with the motion here. It's not saying we are doing anything other than directing legal to write a letter to initiate the further research we need to get back from Republic Services to consider before we could make a motion to recommend it or not, to bring it forward to City Council.
Thank you. Members of the commission, is there a motion?
Mr. Chair, I would move that legal be directed to provide a letter to Republic to request a pro forma on the program.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we request legal to put together a letter to send to Republic. Additional comments?
Just clarification, do you want it to just be for the program being proposed by Mike McCurry or the Boise program as well? I suggest both.
Mr. Chair, I would amend my motion to ask for a comparative pro forma.
And the second is comfortable with that?
Yes. Second.
Okay, so it's so amended. Additional comments or discussion on the motion? Sensing the commission is ready for a vote, all those in favor of requesting legal to put together Meridian City Legal Department to put together a letter to Republic to provide us some additional information on costs and other considerations for this process, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? The motion passes. Again, thank you, Mike, for presenting all of this, and we will go ahead and start our activities.
Thank you guys for your time.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
Okay, that completes the presentation and it moves us into old business. Residential recycling has been quite busy over the last month or so. So we'll break this up into individual subjects. First off is the Dow Chemical Energy Bag Program. And in reporting back to Commission, I did give a update to City Council about a little over a week ago to give them an update of our meeting on January 24th, where we were in phone conversation with Renewology to find out more about their processing, and also our February 1st special meeting when we met with John Piper on the Orange Bag Program. And after that, there's a subject coming up next on mixed paper that will be coming before our group, but Republic had asked us to have a meeting to become more familiar with the mixed paper program, and during that meeting, they made us aware of the fact that Eagle and Garden City both have are considering and putting together a request to the city of Boise to be added into their program to allow a small number of bags to be bought for them to distribute to their citizens, about 1,500 in Eagle and 2,000 in Garden City, or maybe I've got that reversed, vice versa. The mayor took extensive interest in that and encouraged us to express an interest to find out whether it would be possible for Meridian to similarly purchase a small quantity of the bags for our super users, recyclers that have been calling the city on a regular basis. In so many instances over the last year, so many people have recognized that the people who maybe are working on a particular subject are not the ones that actually find out how hot the issue is, that there's a front line of people that take phone calls, and that's in the city clerk's office and our mayor's office and our council, and they have been getting a few very passionate calls of people who would really like to be involved in plastics. And so this is a possibility of how to be able to make a few people be able that really passionately want to be involved, be able to participate. With that, Andrea, could you help me on, is there anything that I've missed on that discussion?
No, that was a good update. To the commission, feel like I should apologize that the city had to act swiftly to write a letter to Steve Burgos in Boise requesting consideration that Meridian, like Garden City and Eagle, could be considered for a smaller number of kits and to launch a smaller program, and then further ask that Boise would ask the sponsor, John Piper at Dow, if we could be approved. We have this meeting today. The normal process, as you know, would have been coming forward with a report that we've learned it's possible, to SWAC one to get behind it, weigh in on a possible pilot program that we could have then taken to city council, got blessing, but we didn't have the time. So the controlling factor was the timing when Boise has to place their order for their kits. And they asked Garden City and Eagle to give them the number of kits they would like by this week. And they're bringing, our understanding is they're bringing their requests to their city councils this week so they can meet Boise's deadline. But we didn't, even though we recognized that we weren't going to get an answer from Boise and Dow before today's meeting, let alone city council meeting this week, we thought by at least getting a letter out there to express the interest that mainly from the mayor's office. Councilwoman Milam weighed in as well. We knew there was citizen interest. We thought, well, let's get our letter, let's throw our hat in the ring, and hopefully we can get a response back that's positive. And I guess that's where I'd marry it up with what I'd like to ask of the commission today is how you want to proceed. Assuming we receive a positive response, do you want to make a motion today that you'd be in favor of supporting a pilot program so that we could take it up to city council for funding authority? Because here's the other piece we have neglected to mention is that we calculated that if we went with 1,500 kits at the dollar amount that Boise has shared it would cost per household, that the community recycling fund has a sufficient balance to cover 1 year's purchase of 1,500 kits, but we would hope to not even spend that much if Dow would pay us the $5,000 they said they would to help support launches of cities' programs outside of the grant process. So it might impact the community recycling fund as much as maybe $10,500, a little bit more than that, or less if we would get that $5,000 from Dow. So there's a couple moving targets here. We don't even know if they're going to approve us. We don't know if we get the 5,000. On the other hand, we need to get council's approval for the funding for the program in order to be able to place the order in time to meet Boise's deadlines to place their order. So it's all pretty much happening so quickly and fast that I apologize, we're not in our normal process, and I would like to marry it up however we can, but I'm kind of struggling a little bit to figure out how to meet that, given the time constraints and the fact that we're not in control of this process because the decision lies outside of the city as to whether we even get to participate or not.
Commissioners, do you have any comments?
I do. It seems prudent that we would make every effort to participate in a pilot program based on the pressure from the public. I would like to answer either we participated or we tried our due diligence and the timing didn't work. I'd rather have that as my answer than we chose not to do anything until a year or two after she worked out the system. It helps us answer the public in some way that we're looking into it, because right now the feeling out there is that we're not trying to do this and they just don't understand. But I think it'd be prudent that we be able to answer yes, that we've tried in some fashion.
Mr. Chair, I have a potentially stupid question. So
No stupid
1,500 kits, $10,500, so $7 a kit. Is there any willingness on the part of the super recyclers to cover their own cost?
None has been expressed to us, but that's a good suggestion. I'm not exactly sure how we would recover costs from them.
Logistical problem, but
Right.
I would certainly do it if I lived in a house that had a garbage can.
So one of the idea we would be working towards accomplishing is having an online, some marketing about this opportunity, have an online portal that people could go in and sign up to be part of this program. First come, first serve. If we only get 80 households, okay, maybe we only have 80 super recyclers here. But if we get, 1,500 filled up and then there were people we had to turn away, that too would be a good insight into our community's interest in the program. I think the way we were contemplating it before your question was to just say we're going to cover the first year's kits. Thereafter, there's no commitment. So maybe you'll have to continue it at your own expense, or maybe the city, because it's been so successful, will want to make it citywide, and then charge households. But I know Garden City and Eagle are both figuring out ways to cover a year's cost. And so the enterprise funds they have, or funds they have available, they're going to put towards it. And, I'd remind you, this is the purpose of the Community Recycling Fund. And though our balance is shrinking and the markets are lousy and we're not looking at, possibly getting more money in, to the fund in the near future, it certainly seems like a pilot program that would merit our look at doing it, even if we do it as a SWAC special project. We could do it that way, but it is what the fund is created for, supporting this type of program. But it's a good question. If there's a way we could figure out how to do that,
Mr. Chair,
I want to consider it.
Councilwoman.
I certainly wouldn't be opposed to charging half of the cost. If you could figure out the logistics, they go to sign up online and they pay $3.50, and then they bring their paper and they can come pick up their pack. I think, to some extent, since we're only offering 1,500 out of 34,000 households, it'll kind of get rid of the people who would just do it to do it and want to be the first on the list and not necessarily really care as much about, not that they're a super recycler, but they're like, oh, they hear about a program and they want to hurry up and come and pick up their bags, and then they don't participate. And I think you're really going to get the people who are going to keep that stream clean if they're willing. I mean, it's only $3.50 for a year's worth of bags. So if we charged half, so it's not a large fee, but I think that it would weed out the not so clean stream. Yeah. I don't know. Just a thought.
And a good thought, especially if we don't get the 5,000 from Dow. That could be a way to not hit the community recycling fund so hard.
Mr. Chair, just to
Yes,
further.
continue.
My hesitation is that, in my understanding, based on the research that we've done to date, this is an untested program, right? No other city in the country has done this successfully, right? There was a pilot program with the purple bags that ended, right? And then there's another program in another city where or the plastic is burnt, right? So this
Rhenology.
particular entity, this is the very first time it's going to be done. So I'm all for testing it out.
Mr. Chairman, Andrea, just a couple things, couple points of clarification. One, so with, I know that Boise was really receptive to this, but I don't think it's up to them actually. So they, the request went to Boise, and Boise has to pass that directly to Dow. And the only thing that I've noticed is in both Garden City and Eagle, it's opened up to all residents. They just happen to be really small communities, and so. They're kind of making assumptions that half the people will want to participate, but because it's open to all of them, that, made Dow say, okay, yeah, if it's open to everybody and maybe only half choose to participate, you can roll into the Boise program and you can get the $5,000. I don't know for sure if they're going to get the $5,000 funding, but it definitely made them appear more eligible because it was open to all residents. The pilot program may be, I don't know how Dow will respond to that. And on Boise's side, they were open to it. They're like, for them, they would like to see this be a regionally successful program. So we'll see. I know John Piper, who came and presented to you, is in Asia right now, and he's out of, doesn't even have access to email or phone right now. So I know that they're waiting. They have the, that's been forwarded to him, but he's out of the country right now. But I do think the price is closer to $8 instead of $7. So that's just something to think of too. With the startup kit with the outreach materials, I think it's closer. We don't have exact numbers, but I think it's closer to 8 than 7. So,
Thank you.
The only things.
Mr. Chair, since this is a trial program, could we, and it's a bit of a concern of hitting the funds so hard, could we even, I know for our Trash or Treasure, we started with one neighborhood. Could we start with one neighborhood with this and then every month add a new neighborhood and work our way up? Is that a possibility so we can test it and see how many people are participating each month and seeing if it has a good response or not?
Mr. Chair, my understanding is that that would not be possible because these orange bags aren't available by retail. And there are reasons that Dow expressed having concern about quality control, their concerns for contamination, their auditing. They, between Boise, the MRF, Republic Services, there's a lot of testing going on and, monitoring, reporting. Dow is very, correctly wanting to have oversight and make sure that these programs are successful. So we thought, when we heard 1,500, 2,000 at Eagle and Garden City, we were like, well, if it's the same players involved, it's the MRF, it's Republic Services, we're close with Boise. If we really focus on super recyclers, they will most likely follow the instructions and be supportive of the program, so as not to be a detriment. So what's the harm, But on the other hand, if Dow has a problem with us not opening it up citywide, then what we were told was that they wouldn't be ready for a program from Meridian until next year, so at the earliest. So I'm just hoping that the 1,500 they might agree to let us in so we could get started and experience this with Boise and Garden City and Eagle and draw our own conclusions about it and whatnot. And if they don't want to put the 5,000 towards it, well, maybe if they would at least let us do it, maybe Meg's idea would gain a foothold that we could offset the burden on the fund. But I think we're just in waiting mode. So I don't know if we want to do a motion just to express support for where we're at right now, and that we would get, I'd report back to you at the end of March what we hear, and then, see if we need to get back involved with our normal process, which is to get it up to City Council. I just don't know until I hear from Al and Steve Burgos. It might be we're talking about nothing that's possible, but it could also be that we get a thumbs up. So it's hard to say. Today, we could just take this as an update and just wait. I don't know.
Any
a lot of
further?
ifs.
Oops, sorry.
Andrew just gave us a lot of ifs.
I don't, it's a moving
is-
target.
So is the appropriate going forward is that we, like I said, make this report, or do we need a motion to pursue potential of purchasing 1,500 kits with the intent to use our fund with the details of what is charged to the participants to be determined later?
It's-
Where we're at?
That's good. We could, as a body, approve upon approval, or if we receive approval to proceed, that we recommend use of the community recycling fund in an amount not to exceed, or to somehow be, if we would do that type of a motion, then I could move forward to get city council approval for funding, because that's what's gonna need to take place before we could place an order for the kits with Boise, is we have to be sure we have gotten approval to purchase them. So does the body feel comfortable going that far?
Can I ask another question?
Yes, Megan.
So, the $10,500 figure, that's the current balance of the community recycling fund, or?
No, my understanding is we're closer to 17,000.
Okay, so Rochelle said that the kit cost is closer to $8, which is $12,000 if you're doing 1,500 kits roughly. So you'd be asking for a not to exceed amount of $12,000. I just don't want to end up
Right,
short,
sure.
right? If we're not going to say that the citizens would have some skin in the game, then this community recycling fund would have to pay the whole amount, which would be a not to exceed amount of 12, not 10, 5.
That's a good point.
Additional comments by the commissioners or motions?
I'd like to make a motion that we proceed to fund, through the Community Recycling Fund, purchase of 1,500 kits not to exceed $12,000, the intent to determine a shared cost with the participants at a later date.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we go ahead and pursue funding purchase of 1,500 kits if we are allowed to,
We are allowed, yeah.
with matching funds from whatever sources we can get matching funds from. As far as the final mechanism would be left to the commission to go ahead and figure out in case we want to go ahead and get partial payment. Yes.
What you're saying is different.
Yeah. like-
Funding from the participants versus some funding mechanism to determine at a later date. So
That
they're
would-
different things.
So that would be a better terminology rather than.
Funding to be determined at a future date.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioner Larson. Okay, so the motion is to pursue trying to get approval to be able to participate in Boise's program with funding to be determined at a future date.
Mr. Chair, may I ask
Yes.
one more question before we vote? Rochelle, the outreach materials included in the kit, do we have any say in the content, or is that what Dow says goes?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman and Commissioner Larson, no, we don't have any say in anything, which actually makes it kind of easy. It's all copyrighted and branded, and it's energy bag, Dow. I mean, it's all pretty formulaic. And the only thing Boise said, if anybody who gets to opt in through the Dow funnel, it'll be a Meridian logo versus the Boise logo. So it'd just be the same exact outreach materials with just a City Meridian logo. But it's already the package is all put together for outreach. Did you have something specific you were thinking of?
My concern is that it's important to me that the message be that the very best thing you can do is reduce your plastic use. And my concern is that plastic producer Dow Chemical will not share that message.
Commissioners, additional comments on the motion?
So, Mr. Chair, I'm not sure where our motion went, because I do want to include a possible source of funding from the Community Recycling Fund in an amount not to exceed $12,000, and that the commission will consider other possible sources at a later date. In other words, we don't want it to come from all of the fund, but if there are some other ways we can go, like charging residents or getting $5,000 from Dow, but is that going to make or break the motion to participate if we get approval for the 1,500 kits, if we can get the funding from the Community Recycling Fund? So for me, I'd rather say in an amount not to exceed that, the 12,000 from the fund, but that we will look into other possible sources of funding as part of our process.
I think in a roundabout way we ended up there.
Okay.
But I'm going to just make a motion
Okay.
that we proceed to purchase 1,500 kits through the recycling fund not to exceed $12,000 with the intent to find other funding sources to be determined.
Let's see, Commissioner Madrigal, is that an acceptable wording of the motion?
Yes.
As the second?
Still seconded.
Okay. Now, Commissioner Poe.
Okay, so I would just have to say, if allowed to participate in the Orange Bag program, we can then make a motion to, our motion should be, if allowed to participate in the Orange Bag program, we move to proceed to purchase 1,500 kits through the Community Recycling Fund not to exceed $12,000 with the intent to find other funding sources if possible.
Couldn't have said it better.
So we got it.
Okay, I'm going to take that the maker of the motion accepts that as friendly motion.
Yes.
The second, do you accept that wording?
Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Any additional comments on the motion? Andrea, could you restate the motion?
Oh, I didn't want to. Okay, something to the effect of, here we go. Let's see. Motion is, if approved to participate in the Orange Bag program, we approve the purchase of 1,500 kits through the Community Recycling Fund not to exceed $12,000 with the intent to find other funding sources if possible.
Is the commission ready for a vote? Very good. Members of the commission, if you are in favor of the motion as read, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? Thank you. The next item to help catch us up is a discussion on mixed paper, an update. Rochelle Klein?
Mr. Chairman, Dave Fisher will be making that presentation. It's pretty short, and this, just as an update, we did talk to the mayor this past week, and she asked for a smorgasbord of menu options on paper to be presented to SWAC with this is looking for a quick roll-up to mayor and council with a recommendation, or at least a second presentation from Dave Fisher, just to kind of make sure everyone's on the same page. And Dave's ready to go.
Dave, state your name and thank you for presenting this information.
You bet. My name's Dave Fisher. I'm with Republic Services, and we're over on Franklin Road here in Meridian. We looked at three options. We felt like it kind of boiled down to that. One is to maintain the current program. The next option would be to remove the mixed paper in the program. And then thirdly, is to suspend all recycling, residential recycling options in each city. And we've had requests for each one of those options. So we've ran the numbers on those, and we will get back to you with a formal letter that relays that information. Using January's number, and unfortunately February is going to be worse. Cardboard took a dip, but we're using January's number to maintain the current program. We looked at, and the information we gave the mayors in their meeting Monday, that it would be somewhere around $2. We've kind of worked through some things, and that's kind of a worst case, but given January's number, we're looking at $1.15 a month. So for $1.15 a month added to each household bill, we could cover the current cost of commodities and how much we're having to subsidize those to market those. And they are being marketed, but we are now to the point with mixed paper where we're paying the end user to take it. The next opportunity would be if we removed mixed paper, and you think, well, that should all go away. Unfortunately, even if we advertise that mixed paper is no longer in the program, we're assuming that we would still get a certain amount of that. So that then becomes a waste product that needs to be disposed of. So that we're looking at adding 75 cents per household to be able to pay for that program. So doing nothing is $1.15. Taking out the mixed paper, 75 cents per home per month. And then suspending recycling, which I would recommend if a city was to suspend recycling, that the recycling cart would stay at the home, and they would use that as an additional trash cart until time that the commodity market came back, and then you could reintroduce recycling very easily, but that would drop the current bill by $1 a month. If you drop the program for recycling right now, all those things that were recycled will now be going to the landfill, so there'll be additional disposal cost on that. Plus, you still have the cost of the cart out there, and obviously more trash routes would have to be added, and with the some of the recycling trucks would get parked. So, but you still have those assets on the street. So that's a real quick, fast, but pretty close to what the different costs and the different options. And like I say, we were asked to provide those 3 different options from different mayors within the valley.
Mr. Chairman and Dave, just for point of clarification, so one is leaving the program intact, one is no mixed paper. Does the no mixed paper still allow you to put cardboard in the cart?
Yes, yeah. So in a no mixed paper program, you would have cardboard, tin and aluminum, plastics 1 and 2, and that's it.
Mr. Chair. Steve, what percentage of our recycling is mixed paper?
Nearly 50%. So the valley-wide subsidy that we're going to be paying this month is right at $225,000 for the month of February, and that's a short month. So that it's actually gotten worse than January. So we ran these numbers on January, and we're thinking that cardboard will turn back around. So we think January is probably more representative than what's happening in February.
Mr. Chair.
Councilwoman.
Dave, so if we were to choose one of these options, say leave it the way it is, we pay an extra $1.15 per household, that would be a number, not a permanent change, but like a flexible change. So when the commodities come back around, I mean, it might be $1.15 for 3 months, and then now it's going to be 75 cents, and then it could go back down to 0, or how does that work?
Certainly, that is one of the things that we presented, that could be a flexible number. we were given direction by your mayor that she didn't want a flexible number, but certainly that's one way to look at it. It could be adjusted quarterly, or you do billing monthly? You could do that. You could look at that monthly and adjust that rate. Have a recycling fee, and that could change depending on what the market did from the previous month. That certainly is an option to do that, but that puts a burden on your billing department that maybe, they'd have to decide if that's, something they could do or not.
Members of the commission, yes, Dave.
Mr. Chairman and Dave, on options 1 and 2, maintaining the current program and removing mixed paper, looks to me like you have to opt for one for all of the communities. It won't work, will it? If you had city of Boise decided they wanted to remove mixed paper and everybody else maintain the current program, wouldn't it end up all mixed up at Western Recycling as a big mess? It sounds like to me. I mean, everybody has to do the same thing, other than I think you could have an entity decide to suspend recycling, and that, they could do that by themselves, and the others would, but wouldn't it have to be the others have to all do the same thing, or it doesn't look like it'll work to me?
Yeah, we certainly, and City of Boise and I believe Meridian, we're going to work on what we want our processing to look like, and certainly with that change, that there would need to be some changes in how they operate their business, and there could be some segregation, but certainly it provides some challenges. If you have multiple different programs, it does provide challenges, certainly.
And Mr. Chairman and Commissioner Neal, we've made Western Recycling aware that there will be, likely cities will decide on different, they'll land somewhere differently on that spectrum, and so they're well aware of the fact that we are breaking routes out by municipality, and we will be bringing in separate loads that could be different, and they just need to be handled differently. So they're aware of that.
Yep.
Thank you.
Commissioners, questions of Republic?
Chair,
Andrew.
I just wanted to clarify that the dollar reduction if a city chose to suspend their residential recycling program would includes all the different variables that you were saying in terms of increased trips to the landfill, parked recycling trucks, carts out there. So is the dollar less per household per month including all of those costs? So that's what the impact would be.
Yes, Commissioner. Yes, yeah, because the revenue goes down, the cost of the recycling goes down, disposal goes up, and then we factored in productivity changes on our routes. So yes, that would be all inclusive. And certainly, like say, if the cart stays at the people's home, when the commodity value changes, that would be very easy to ramp that back up and start providing the service again.
Commissioner Larson.
So if we were to go with the do nothing option and the residents had to pay the additional cost there, what happens to the mixed paper? You're right now this month, or someone's taking it off our hands for a fee and then doing what with it?
Commissioner Larson, the word we're getting from the people that do the marketing of those papers currently are that the paper is being bought. Not too many things you sell, you have to pay someone to take it, but that's what's happening. So the people that are taking it now we're paying them to take it, but from all indications, they are recycling it. So the mixed paper is still going to the Far East. It's not particularly going to China, but more Malaysia and Vietnam.
Dave, correct me if I'm wrong, but you said you were putting all this information together in a set of proposals for the cities to
yes,
consider.
we will. Yep.
So we would be looking at a written version of this to be submitted?
Yes, we will. Yeah, and there'll be some detail behind that too, so you can have some more structure to look at, so.
Thank you. Commissioners, any further questions of Dave? Thank you, Dave.
Thank you.
Commissioners, any further comments on this activity? Certainly, we would not have to pick it up until we had formal communication, but if anyone was moved, of course, motions are always in order, but we don't need to. Going once, going twice, 3 times. Okay, no motions on this at this point. We'll pick it up when we get communication.
Mr. Chair,
Councilwoman.
I just want to apologize. I have to leave in a couple minutes. I have somewhere else I have to be. Thank you.
Understood.
Mr. Chair, I too am wondering if we could move to hear the glass recycling update, 7A, and then maybe bring back next month 6.3, 7B, C, and D.
Rochelle, would that be okay that we? Sure. Okay.
Do you
So-
have this possibility about
glass?
yeah, have you heard Genesis about it? Because you might want to just, yeah, you might want to stay to listen. It's
very
exciting. It's our first exciting
Rochelle.
opportunity in a long time.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, we have been working diligently on a glass recycling solution for City of Meridian and for City of Nampa. Both are really interested in recycling, and the balance with environmental abrasives is Eagle and Boise numbers work out great. So we reached out to Momentum Recycling, which actually Priyanka, who owns Renewlogy, who we've been working with on the Orange Energy Bag program. I asked her about glass, and she had Momentum Recycling out of Salt Lake City call us. Momentum Recycling has been in business a fair amount of time, I want to say over 5 years in Salt Lake City. They are a glass cullet processor, and they sell 100% of their glass to Owens Corning, which is a fiberglass company. So all of this glass is made into fiberglass. The pink, you see Pink Panther and in home improvement stores, the glass fiberglass insulation. They sell all of it to Owens Corning, where it's melted and spun into generally pink fibers. 30% of all the insulation that we generally buy and through any store is recycled glass material. And Owens Corning had a facility in Salt Lake, and when the economy went down, they closed. They kind of mothballed their Owens Corning plant, and another small business saw it as an opportunity because there was still a demand, but it was a smaller demand. So they opened a real state-of-the-art fiberglass company right, several miles away from Owens Corning, the old Owens Corning plant. And so Momentum Recycling continued they just shifted, and they started selling glass to the new small private place, and that worked out really well. And then as the economy picked back up, Owens Corning wanted to dust off their factory and open it up again, and found that theirs was fairly obsolete compared to the new fancy shiny one. So they bought the new fancy shiny one. So now the Owens Corning is the new one, and the old Owens Corning has been somewhat dismantled. Momentum Recycling has companies in Denver, and the one in Utah, I'm not super familiar with Utah, is in Nephi? I don't know. Does anyone know that one? Okay. Which is apparently a suburb of Salt Lake or close to it. Momentum Recycling is currently capturing 20% of Salt Lake City's glass, and they do that in 2 ways. They have drop sites, and then they have subscription curbside for residents and subscription business recycling, and they use 65-gallon carts so they don't get too heavy. And the way they structure it there, the way they structure it there is that the commercial and residential subscription programs help fund the drop sites. So the drop sites, Salt Lake is pretty far from here, so transportation is always the issue. It's always expensive to transfer glass. They have such a demand for glass. They said if we figure out the hauling and the billing on our side and the collection piece of it, they will transport 100% of glass from Meridian down to Salt Lake City for recycling. The transportation is generally really one of the most expensive components, and they run double like double sand trucks. They're big trucks. And so what we would have to do here is we'd have to build just a pad with like a push wall where we could store the glass. And then as we, like, Dave left, I guess, but Dave and I were thinking we would put a glass drop site at the transfer station. It's monitored. We could clean up after it. Our experience with other drop sites is people, you know, they get there and it takes a little bit of time to load their glass to the window, so they just dump the whole box, right? They just kind of leave it. So it's a lot of work. Eagle will tell you it's a lot of work to maintain a glass site. You know, an Eagle, which is why we would offer to put it at our site, they had kids who would break the glass. They caught them and they got in trouble for breaking the glass, but it's definitely, if left unattended, the glass sites can be somewhat problematic. So we figured if businesses only had glass carts and they would, you know, be secured with their business, or residents would have them at their households, you know, we could look at, we don't have pricing yet for what that would be, but we could definitely get that down there. I think it's around $10 a month for glass. It's similar to Boise is $9.95 a month. So theirs down there is similar. We would have to build a bunker. They actually expanded north to Pocatello and Idaho Falls area, and they're the public Bannock County and built a bunker to house up to 100 tons of glass. And then they call Momentum, and Momentum within 48 hours sends a double sand truck, kind of dump truck, up to retrieve the glass. So we would be responsible for, you know, just taking a loader and loading these trailers. Anything we would collect from businesses or residents or from the drop site, we would dump into a glass pad, a bunker, and we would load for them, and then they would take it back down to Salt Lake City within 48 to 72 hours. They can get 40 tons on a double dump truck. We would offer, they would just need one site that they could send the truck to. Instead of making multiple runs with this dump trailer, they would just come to one site identified by the city of Meridian. We're offering that to be our facility, but if you guys have a public works site, like maybe you want the glass site to be at the wastewater treatment facility, and that'd be totally fine with us too. We just, you all want to take charge of that, that's up to you. Anyway, they have had great success. We have a standing invitation if any of us want to drive down and see their facility. They open their doors, say, come on down. They would welcome, I said we might go see Renewology, and if we go see Renewology, we could go see Renewology, Momentum Recycling, and the Owens Corning Factory all at once. If you guys were interested, we could set that up. They actually secured some big contracts with the Utah State liquor stores. So all liquor stores, you could bring your empty glass bottles back. It's not really they're like, it's sort of a walk of shame. You know, you might want to not bring them all at once, but they're like, it's kind of the walk of shame. You drop your empties off and maybe your jelly jars or whatever. It doesn't have to be Utah like liquor, but Utah State liquor stores were great in partnering with them. They actually also have these clusters around Salt Lake where they have 3 or 4 small containers clustered together around a trash cart and a recycling cart. So people, if they brought their glass in a box, they could thread their bottles in the cart and then break down their box and leave it for recycling. So the guy is really savvy. He's been doing this a long time. He started in Denver and then moved to Salt Lake maybe 5 or 6 years ago. So I encourage any of us to reach out to him if you had questions, or if you want us to pursue pricing on what it would, you know, look like to maintain a drop site and build a bunker. Bunkers aren't too hard to build, I guess, just kind of a cement pad with a push wall. But anyway, we want to make sure you knew that they're willing to cover all transportation costs, which is actually quite huge. That's a big deal.
I know.
And so anyway, we wanted to throw that out there, and if you're interested, I can set up a tour if you want to go see it, or if you want us to pursue pricing on what they said their bars and restaurants really, the bars and restaurants really subsidize the drop site. So if that's a model you guys wanted to do or look at, that's fine too. So
Commissioner Pogue.
So Rochelle, thank you so much on behalf of Meridian to bring us finally a possible outlet. This is very exciting. I'm wondering, for glass recycling in Boise, is it every other week pickup for that $9.95? Is it once a month?
It's every 4 weeks. Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Pogue, it's every 4 weeks. So you get a separate calendar other than the one. It just has your every 4 week schedule, and you just get it out to the curb. It sort of lives in its own world. It's really successful there. The people who have it, I think we have a little over 2,000 customers recycling glass in the Boise Glass program. I mean, more people take advantage of the drop site, but a lot of people, there are 18 drop sites there. We could certainly look at more than one drop site. I mean, we're willing to host one at our facility, but, you know, they take some oversight, so it's just a, you know, commitment. But if anybody else wanted to host one too, that would be great.
Commissioner Pogue?
Another question, to get that $10 a month rate, is that a a subscription program get that rate?
Yes, so that's a residential every 4-week rate. Businesses that have glass recycling, 6th and Main in Boise sells more liquor than any place else in the state, so they all have glass containers that go like daily. And so just to be a function of just like any other commercial rate, it would be, you know, we have restaurants and bars in Meridian that are interested in that, so just be a function of how much they generate. They could have a 2-yard container, all the way from like a 65-gallon cart up to a 2-yard container with multiple day-a-week service. So we could just price it like we would any other a la carte service, and if bars and restaurants chose to do it or participate, it'd be up to them.
Would it be possible for Republic Services to build that, like for the grass subscription program?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Well then, I don't know, does anyone else have any questions? Because otherwise I'd be ready to make a motion.
So if residents are bringing their glass to the drop site, then there's no fee for that.
It's just,
They
would bring it.
themselves.
There is a fee. I mean, there's a fee because we, you know, the Idaho State Tax Commission charges us container rent, and there would be service every time we had to empty that drop site, and then.
But to the individual
But to
resident.
no.
Yeah. Oh, you said that bars and restaurants subsidize the drop site in Salt Lake area.
That's their
Can you
model.
say what that means?
So, like, let's say for us, you know, we have to pour a cement pad, and I don't even know if I would want to guess what that would cost, but let's just say it's $5,000 to pour a cement pad and another $5,000 for a push wall and whatever that looks like. And then we have to make 2 glass roll-off containers, which have windows on the sides for people to drop the glass in, so it's not just an open dumpster. So let's say it's around $200 a month for each drop site. And then we have some, or 300, I don't know. So anyway, we would need to make sure if that's the model that that bars and restaurants subsidize the drop sites, that we would make at least that much on the service for the bar and restaurant side to cover the cost of the drop site. They don't seem to have a problem with it there. They have a lot of participants in the program, and but they get more glass at the drop sites than they have, you know, than they do at the curb, which is similar to Boise too. I mean, more people choose to take their glass to a drop site than have us come to them and pick it up. But
Thank you.
sure.
Commissioners, additional questions or comments?
I have to say, this was exciting for us because we, for years, looked for a Meridian solution, and transportation is always the killer. Like, we looked at coal cars on the rail, we looked at all kinds of solutions, and so to have somebody willing to come up, and he's been doing it a long time, and he does this all around Denver and all around Salt Lake, and he's already in Idaho, so he knows what the transportation costs are. So even if you choose not to do it, at least that's an option.
So my thought, Mr. Chair, is would you want a letter similar to what we just voted on, to have legal prepare a letter to get you to request that you would pursue the pricing for
Right.
a glass recycling program?
Yes, thank you. So we would need next steps, like a letter, because what would happen is we'd have to market this. We'd have to reach out to the bar. We'd have to have like a marketing budget to let them know that this exists. We'd probably make a like some sort of billing insert for residents to know what's available. And certainly whether that's available at a drop site or whether they chose to have service right at their house, we'd want to make sure residents knew that this was coming, or maybe we take, you know, a poll, do like a survey to see if there's interest in it. But definitely we would have to buy additional containers, carts, and make roll-off containers and market the program so people knew it was out there and stuff like that. So we need just direction from you to at least investigate the costs associated with that and what rates would be, and then we can. That's a faster turnaround of a performer than something more complicated like we're talking about with Mike and Tori.
So can we do it just by motion today to
yeah,
direct you? Well,
yeah.
let's do, I'd like.
Go ahead,
That motion.
Commissioner Pogue.
Okay, I move to direct Republic Services to pursue the costs for creating a subscription glass recycling program with Momentum Recycling in Salt Lake City.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to have legal department produce a letter to Republic. Oh,
No, the motion, Mr. Chair, is we are directing
Directing
as a
them.
body for Republic Services to proceed.
I stand corrected. Thank you.
Take out a step of the progress.
Okay. The motion is to direct Republic Services to put together a proposal for a subscription process. Additional comments from commissioners or?
Just as a point of clarification, it'd be Republic doing the billing, right?
Right.
Okay.
So just the way you handled the
Yeah.
grass subscription program. That was really just us saying we're interested in participating, and then Republic Services just reported to us what the program was going to cost, how they were going to launch it, what the program looked like. You know, we vetted it, and but you guys really ran with it.
Sensing the commission is ready for a vote. All those in favor of directing Republic Services to pursue this signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. The motion passes. Thank you.
Great. Thank you.
And Commission, I'm sorry, it's 5:45, and I have kept you for an extensive amount of time. We can definitely go ahead and postpone the remaining items until next month. So if, without objection, if you're willing to postpone those, we will go ahead and adjourn this motion. Are there any objections to postponing the remaining materials on our agenda till next month? Hearing no objections, then the remaining, then we will go ahead and stand adjourned. It is 5:46. Thank you all.